At any moment, the former best friend of Cassie Ventura is expected to return to the witness stand in Sean Diddy Combs' federal sex trafficking trial. Before the break, Carrie Morgan testified that she was best friends with Ventura, Combs' former girlfriend, for about 17 years. The relationship ended after Combs allegedly assaulted her. Morgan also says that she saw Combs assault Ventura multiple times and that Ventura told her she couldn't leave Combs because, quote, he controlled everything.
Meantime, Dawn Richard, a former member of a musical group formed by Combs, was also back on the stand today. Richard testified she frequently saw Combs be violent toward Ventura, and she urged Ventura to leave him. Richard said when Combs found out about those conversations, he would tell her to stop or else, quote, we would pay for it. On cross-examination, Richard acknowledged that after parting ways with Bad Boy Records and Combs back in 2011, she reached out to Combs on several occasions to work together again. Defense attorney Misty Marris is joining us now from outside the federal courthouse in New York. We're going to pick it up there. Misty, obviously they are back on a Monday. There was a huge week of testimony last week with Cassie Ventura, their real star witness, on the stand. How does everyone, especially the jury, marinate on what happened over the weekend, and then what does that mean when they pick it up on a Monday like today?
Yeah, well, Cassie Ventura's testimony was absolutely disturbing, to say the least. And so the jury did have the weekend to think about what she raised on the stand, as well as the defense cross-examination. So diving back into testimony on Monday with corroborating witnesses. So that's Dawn Richard and Carrie Morgan, who are now testifying about actually being an eyewitness to some of that violence from Combs to Cassie. That is something that prosecutors likely were strategic about, so that you're hearing from corroborating witnesses after digesting and evaluating that very disturbing testimony from last week.
Misty, you got a chance to be in the courtroom today. I wonder what stood out to you most about the testimony that you heard.
So Dawn Richard was the first witness to testify, and I found her to actually have fallen apart a bit on cross-examination. So she did what prosecutors needed her to do. She testified about a very specific incident where she saw Diddy hit Cassie with a skillet. And then after, and this being most important, the following day, Diddy threatened her. He said something to the effect of, when people talk, they go missing. She perceived this as a threat. Now that's critical to the prosecution's argument, because this is all about control. And that speaks to that idea of blackmail, of cover-up, of keeping people in line that we heard about in the prosecutor's opening statement and the theme throughout Cassie Ventura's testimony. Now, on cross-examination though, specifically with respect to that threat, it came out that that had never come out in all of the interviews she did with prosecutors the past 7 times. So why now? The defense was able to capitalize on that. She also has a civil lawsuit that is currently pending, and the defense was able to box her in that she's looking for financial compensation. So the impeachment testimony that came out on cross, both questioning her remembering of these incidents, as well as showing that she has other motivations for what she might be saying on the stand, was really effective from a defense perspective.
Yeah, and Misty, I mean, you've tried a lot of cases, and as a defense attorney, when you're able to do what you just described with a witness's testimony, how far can that go in really trying to neutralize anything they're doing for the prosecution?
So the goal is to impeach the credibility, and one way to do that is to talk about how somebody might be remembering something different today than back when it actually happened, and that the closest that is going to be to the truth, and this is what a defense attorney will say to the jury, is any record of what happened back then, because it's closer in time. You know, now we're talking about conduct that's over a decade old. So the defense was able to talk about an evolving story. Not only that, where there were critical facts left out of communications with prosecutors, and also the financial motivation. But to me, where the defense really gained points, they asked, well, when you've suppressed all of these traumatic events, how do you end up thinking about them again? How do you recall? And they said, from talking to you guys, meaning the government. And so what the defense is going to argue is that this story has been molded. Another thing that came out during her testimony is that she actually had been reaching out to Combs as recently as 2021 to get back in business with him. So if this was an environment that was permeated with violence and threats, why would you do that? So the defense really scored a lot of points today on cross-examination with Richard.
And I wonder about Carrie Morgan. She is apparently back on the stand right now being questioned. She's obviously someone who was very close to Cassie Ventura. She said that she witnessed at least 2 direct instances that she recalls in detail where Combs hit his ex-girlfriend, though she says there were other occasions. They since had a falling out ever since the incident with Combs back in 2018. What did you make of her testimony, how it's going so far?
Carrie Morgan came off as very, very credible. First, she started her testimony by explaining her personal and close relationship with Ventura, dating back to when they lived together in 2004. She said she didn't even want to be here. She's here subject to a subpoena because she had to be. And she did say they had a falling out. This is in 2018 when she alleges that Combs actually attacked her. She never brought a lawsuit relating to that. But Cassie came not long afterwards, diminished what had happened between the two, and Combs ended up paying her $30,000. So again, that's this idea of keep quiet that's coming back in front of the jury when it comes to Combs and his violent conduct. She also described in detail, Boris, these 2 incidents, one at Diddy's Hollywood Hills home. The violent incident is disturbing to say the least, but what she said happened after is really important to this aspect of control. She said that Diddy was driving around trying to find them after they fled the house in Hollywood Hills. She also got into that 2016 tape. She said that after that altercation at the Intercontinental, that Diddy actually came to Cassie Ventura's home and was hitting her door with a hammer. So this all speaks to that idea of control and coercion. And her testimony thus far has been really, really compelling. And she's coming off as a pretty great witness for the prosecution, corroborating Cassie Ventura's story.
All right, so much more to come this week. Misty Marris, thank you so much for that. We really appreciate it.